It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Fantastic. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the UGA Sports Live Podcast here at Champions on Backstreet. My name is Rodney DeBolsey. I'm joined by Jake Roos, the recruiting predictor, Automatron 7000, who's been fantastic predicting who is going to commit to Georgia. He's been lights out. He and Trent Smallwood have had this on lock for, years now. But anyway, we're missing Jim Donnan. He is with his wife down at Emory. They're having some issues they're working through, and our well wishes and Godspeed to Coach Donnan and his wife. Hopefully they will be back in Athens soon. And
Definitely.
On the men there, so we're gonna our prayers and thoughts are with them right now. We have a ton of questions for everyone for us to answer. Everyone, we put a little note on the UGA Sports Dog Vent. We got a lot of questions come in. We had some come in via Twitter too. Right now, we are sharing this podcast with everybody. If you would do the same, we would greatly appreciate it. We're on the 365 Game Day Facebook page. If you'd hit that share button, share it with your friends, let them know what's going on, we would really appreciate it. Big shout out to all our sponsors: Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Europi, Academia Brewing Company, Cable East, 11 Alive. I spoke to 11 Alive. They will be up here Friday. Practice starts Friday.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
I know, it? Practice is finally here. So we'll actually have real football to talk about. Well, I mean, I don't know. I call practice real football, but
when did we stop? I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm just saying it's like, there will be, hey, here's something that happened. It's not conjecture. It's not predictions. It's not analysis. It's like, hey, in practice we saw X.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Or Kirby Smart said this happened in practice. Or here's something happened in scrimmage. I know a lot of people don't think real football is here until you actually have games, but no, the games that you see on Saturday are a culmination of the position battles that go on starting this coming Friday. So next Tuesday at noon here at Champions on Baxter Street, we will be talking about, a couple days of practice. We don't know the entire practice schedule yet. For some reason, Georgia decides not to let us know that. We had to break the news that the first practice was Friday. We had to break the news that a fan day was on Saturday. We don't know if they're practicing Sunday. We don't know what the schedule is. I don't know how that helps you beat Alabama, but apparently it does by not telling anybody when you're going to practice.
Well, you saw what Notre Dame did. I mean, how would you feel about that setup? I mean, they're giving 5 full practices
to the media
out of, I guess, 30 or roughly 28, and that's it. So, and you get I think they said they get 3 other extra hours, I guess, or something like that. I think that'd be a nice setup. And like you said, I wish just for scheduling purposes. I know that's selfish of us, but. Man, it's nice to kind of be able to lay that stuff out.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm not going to see my family again until March.
No, it's okay. And again, I don't mind it. I just like to know which practices are open, which ones are closed, so that I can make sure that we have enough staff there. When you go to UGAsports.com, right now we have a 50% off deal. Now, nobody covers practice like we do. We always have more people at practice than any other outlet. Hell, most outlets combined. We have 4 or 5, sometimes 6 people there at a practice. We're telling you everything that happens.
Roddy will keep hiring people to make sure that the number keeps going up.
It is an arms race, and we're winning that race. But if you want to get all that practice notes, we're doing a 50% off deal. Just go to UGAsports.com and I'll say, are you a member? Hit the sign-up page and type in 50UGA. 50 UGA. That's 50% off. We've already had a ton of people sign up for that. We've never offered that deal before. We've never done 50% off. So show my bosses when I said, look, we're going to be able to do this, and a lot of people are going to sign up, make me look good. I don't need to hear from them, well, you only signed up, a couple hundred people. Well, let's make it a couple thousand and drive them crazy. Big shout out to Champions here on Baxter Street. We're on the lookout for a missing banana pudding.
I could understand why you'd want to steal it from Champions.
Somebody stole one of their banana pudding. So all points bulletin out for the banana pudding. This Friday we will see the team. They're going to come out in helmets. You're not going to be able to say, we're not going to see any one-on-one stuff. But in answer to your question, would I like to see 5 full practices and not be able to go into a lot more of them? Yes. I would be willing to give up the
daily access.
The daily, and again, we don't get daily because they practice on Saturdays. We don't get to see that. We don't get to see stuff on
Sunday normally.
Sunday. Well, no, we don't practice on, but the Thursdays are often shut down. But I would like to be able to see Trey Blunt go up against Devon Wilson.
Sure.
For a pass. A lot of what we see at practice is not the one-on-ones. So I would like to see a little bit more of that. And here's the thing, we're not going to, if we had that access, we wouldn't go in and say, here's, give away stuff. We just want to be able to answer your questions. So speaking of answering questions.
All right, quit. I was going to say,
let's jump into it.
Quit bitching about practice access. You know they ain't listening to us. Well, first, before we get into these questions, I think it's important that we talk about the big action over the last couple of days. It's been.
You mean the questions aren't all about Kendall Milton and Chad Lindbergh?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I think it's been a big weekend last weekend for Georgia. A lot of visitors in town for the big recruiting weekend, and really interesting the reactions we got. I got a piece up today with Micah Morris, 2021 guy out of Camden County, offensive lineman, 4-star guy, number 33 in the nation. Yeah, a major target for the Bulldogs in that class. And he said, I thought it was a really impactful statement. He said, sometimes it's just nice to have fun. And he said that was what this was about. I mean, I'm sure that Georgia subtly was working in the recruiting, but this was a chance for these guys in a lot of cases to go out there, spend time with coaches, spend time with other recruits. It wasn't like they were pitching them things. It wasn't like they were taking them, into the weight room. It was relay races and pie eating contests, and and I think that appeals to these guys because it's not very often that you get to hear about them just being kids. Again, and I think that Georgia did a good job doing that this weekend.
You got to like when there was subtle recruiting. So when you take Tate Ratledge, a 5-star offensive tackle, and you put Darnell Washington on his sniper team, basically, they have some cups stacked up, and they give them these water pistol things. They're like, here, y'all knock these down, and you see who can do that first. Those two guys are laughing, cutting up. What does Georgia want to see but 5-star tight end next to a 5-star offensive tackle playing together on who was their coach in that thing?
Todd Hartley?
Todd Hartley. So, again.
Do you think that was all orchestrated?
It's subtle, but it's not, hey, here's why you shouldn't go to Alabama. Here's why you need to come to Georgia. It's not the rah-rah pitch about Georgia. It's not negative recruiting. It's, hey, why don't y'all have fun hanging out together? Y'all build that relationship with the coach. And, of course, right after they knock over their water things, they turn the water guns on the coach, and they had this water battle. They're like, man, last time I was at Georgia, I had a blast. Now, when I go to Auburn and, they take me on the academic tour, this isn't as much fun as blasting Todd Hartley with a water gun.
I agree.
So, again, there is recruiting. When Micah Morris leaves and says, yeah, it wasn't recruiting, it was just having fun. Yeah, there was recruiting.
Yeah.
You just didn't see it.
You were hanging out with Sam Pittman. Yeah. It's not like you weren't. You were hanging out with Cedric Van Pran. You got a chance to spend some time with him. I mean, it was an opportunity, though, to get these guys up. Obviously, ended up paying some big dividends. And with guys, actually, I guess it didn't pay huge dividends right off the bat with those guys because the dividends were with guys who weren't even there this weekend. And that was Chad Lindbergh, 4-star tackle out of Clear Creek, Texas, just outside, I believe, the Houston area.
Wait, he's from Texas?
He is from Texas.
No,
yes.
Georgia's not supposed to get any Texas players because they lost the Sugar Bowl to Texas.
You got Jalen Kimber already. You had Alcanola committed for a while. I mean, they're going to be fine in Texas. And Zach Evans just visited this past weekend, the number 1 running back in the nation. So Chad Lindbergh, though, commits on Sunday night. A big pickup for Georgia, I think, in this regard. Is offensive line the biggest need in this class? No. But I think 2020 has a great group of offensive linemen. They're going to try to stack them every year. This is a kid, too, who has the versatility.
Well, you need tackles.
Sure.
So sure. I think if you say is offensive line the biggest priority, maybe not. But we say is offensive tackle maybe the biggest priority?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would think so, sure. Yeah. But this is a kid, too, who you can take and plug in kind of anywhere. I mean, even if tackle doesn't work out for Lindbergh, he's got a chance to play at the guard position. He's very capable of playing center. He's got a 5+ GPA.
5.38
I didn't even know that was possible. Dave McMahon hit me up and was like, hey, I think there's a typo in your story. You got 5.3. This kid is –
It's on a 6.0 GPA scale because he's doing AP classes.
Right.
He has enough college credits when he graduates in May. When he comes to Georgia, academically, he will be the equivalent of a sophomore with all his academic credits that will transfer.
Yeah, if he stays 4 years, he can earn a master's degree.
Yeah, so that's And he's 6'6", 295
It
pounds.
only took you 8 to get a bachelor's?
We're not talking. This isn't about me. Hey, look, we're talking about offensive lineman. Russ Tanner just walked in. Now I know where that banana pudding went.
There you go. No, I think that it's anyway, great pickup, though, for Georgia in that regard. Hey, look, you pull him away from the Longhorns. I mean, that was the other team that wanted him really badly. And this seems like a guy who is going to be able to compete for those tackle reps. You've got 4 guys right now who can do it, who that's what they play. I mean, and they've got the build. You're talking about each one of those guys now being 6'6" plus.
Well, there was a 6'5" guy in there. I don't know how he got in the group, but everyone is 6'6".
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know that there is with the growth. We need to update some of those heights, I'm telling you.
Very true.
But, you're talking about 6'6", all these guys 300-plus pounds. I mean, it's
and
what
you could add another one in Cedric Van Pran.
Sure, it's what you want to be able to pick from when you're picking your offensive lineman. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and the reason I'm so harping on the offensive tackles, you got to know that Andrew Thomas is gone after this year. Isaiah Wilson might be too, And you notice what they were doing in spring and what they were doing towards the last year. They were trying to find another tackle. They're moving guys that we had always, said this is a diehard guard. Hey, Jamari Sawyer, go out and play tackle. Cade Mays, get out there and play tackle. Guys I thought would play interior, they're playing out, playing outside because they need tackles next year. So, Owen Condon will be there. They have some guys coming in, but you want to see them load up on tackles this year. And was it last year or the year before, the defensive line prospects were just non-existent?
Yeah, that was the year before.
Yeah. So you had a situation where sometimes you have a bumper crop at a certain position, and you go a little deeper than maybe your numbers indicate, and it hurts you somewhere else. But then, next year maybe they only take up 2 or 3 offensive linemen, and all of a sudden they're big on wide receivers or secondary guys.
Well,
or
and
linebackers.
You say that, but what's important I think to remember for a lot of people is that next year is a banner year on offensive line. Once again, you got a Marius Mims in state, 6'7", 330 pounds. I mean, a guy who looks NFL ready. You got Micah Morris, who we just talked about. You've got guys coming from all over that are interested. Donovan Jackson's a guy from out in Texas who's going to visit. You got Landon Tingwall, our guy Mike Singer just put that up on the board this morning. A guy out of the Mid-Atlantic area, 6'6" guy coming in to visit for the UGA Notre Dame game. So it's another banner year there. I mean, it's a fantastic crop. Georgia is going to be in on a lot of those guys, and I think you've just got to be excited about that. But look, there's no excuse to turn down good players if they want to come.
Well, it's the same thing. Like last year, Georgia was able to they thought they were getting 2 running backs. They picked up 1 in Kenny McIntosh, a very, very big kid, talented running back. This year, there's a lot of big running backs out there, and sure enough, when they missed out on who was it at the end? They missed out on
Trey Sanders.
A lot of people are wringing their hands. We're like, wait, just hold off. There are some great running backs this upcoming class, and now all of a sudden they have one.
Yeah, speaking of, what a nice segue there. So you get Lindbergh on Sunday. Monday night turns right around. Not that it shocks a lot of people, but it's still a huge addition. Kendall Milton joins the fold. 5-star out of Clovis, California, from Buckhannon High School. A guy 6'2" almost, in that 220 range. I compared the build to that of Todd Gurley. That's what he looks like to me. I'm not saying he's at that talent level, certainly, but, this is a kid with that kind of build, and I think that's a nice change-up for Georgia in the backfield. And this is a kid, a great support system behind him. Got a brother already playing college football. His dad looks like he could line up at D-end right now and get back there and cause some havoc. And a kid who has just clearly bought into what Georgia has to offer. I think people, have been expecting it for a long time. It took maybe that took a little bit of the shine off of it for people, but I sure hope not, because Kendall, I think, is a very versatile running back. Good hands out of the backfield, powerful, got some wiggle to him. A guy who's going to be able to get out there and make an impact for you, even early on in his career, I think.
And you got to like the fact that what happens if you lose DeAndre Swift this year,
and I mean they're selling. They sold Kendall Milton on that's what's going to happen. Yeah. I mean they told him, look, the door is going to be open for somebody to come in and be the lead back next year, because we expect DeAndre Swift is going to the league. It's just like how Sam Pittman is selling to these offensive linemen. Hey, look, Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wilson, they're gone after this year. That's the expectation of the coaching staff, and rightfully so. I think that
you project your 5 stars, upper 4 stars, leaving in 3 years.
Sure.
Don't assume they're going to be here 4 years and not take a replacement when they're available. Because if you're a great program like Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, you're sending a ton of kids early. Well, I think last year, I've made this point numerous times, there were almost 300 juniors declared for the NFL draft.
Right.
There's only 250-something spots, I just remembered it was almost 1-for-1 the number of draft spots. There was a junior that had declared.
Now, think of this, though. If you can send out your juniors and get them drafted, that's the selling point. All of that's big time, and that's what these guys want. I mean, Kendall Milton has not made any bones about it. He said, "Look, I feel like I can come to Georgia, play 3 years, and get on my way." Broderick Jones said the same thing.
Yes,
that's the message that these guys are getting.
A ton of them have. Yes.
I mean, that's what they're being told, and I think that it's a great pitch for Georgia.
Yeah, and when you see them drafted, you see them playing in the NFL, and you see them in Super Bowls and stuff like that. It's okay. It kind of works. You know? But I guess the biggest question now, you get Kendall Milton, Georgia still probably wants another running back.
There's no question they want another running back. I'm just saying,
but who is it?
Yeah, so tell
them who was here this weekend.
All right, so Zach Evans made the visit this weekend. 5-star, number 1 running back in America, out of the Houston, Texas area, North Shore High School, probably the cream of the crop when it comes to Texas high school football right now. I mean, North Shore has been on that game. And Evans made his way to Athens. I think that there is a lot more smoke there than people probably are willing to give it credence. I don't like the chances of him ending up at Georgia in the end. I think that he probably ends up staying in state. I think that that's going to be compelling for him. And people say, "Oh, well, he didn't even include them in any of the he didn't even include the top teams from the state in his top 5. Right. Texas and Texas A&M." That doesn't matter. He's got plenty of time to stop by both. He has done that. He was at Texas A&M before he came to Georgia. So it's not a situation where I see it being an easy pull for Georgia. I do think there's some legitimate interest on his end. He's been here enough to justify that.
I think there would be more if he didn't already know that Kendall Milton was coming.
I tend to agree with you on that. Yeah, I can certainly see that.
I'm not saying he's scared of it.
No,
Evans is not scared of anybody. He was like, look, we can go share carries, but I can also go somewhere else. And, there's other schools that have a bigger need for me. But when you look at that offensive line, I mean, think about it. Lindbergh commits, and then Kendall's right behind him. Kendall's sitting there looking at 4 giant offensive linemen, already committed in this class. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go run behind those guys. And for a team that likes to run the ball, some of these other teams that are in Evans' top 5, they throw the ball a lot. They're not dedicated to running. And he's like, yeah, I might want to go someplace where I know I'm going to get the ball, even if I'm sharing carries.
Sure.
Georgia is one of the only teams to have ever pulled off 2 5-star backs in a recruiting class. Could they do it again? Possible.
And I just
don't see it as much.
And I'll tell you this: Evans too has a very large family, and they're very heavily Texas-based. So he's got a lot of in-state pressure when it comes to the ability to stay home, I guess, and be a local legend, and deliver on that.
So let's say he stays on that. Where does Georgia go then?
All right, so I think that they've got a couple of options out there. I think that if you're looking at the board, the name that clearly jumps off, I think, to everybody is Tank Bigsby. I think that being a 4-star guy, number 1 athlete in the nation, in-state. He spent the weekend over at Auburn, but he's visited Georgia before already this summer. He's been here a couple times. I think you'll get him back on campus. For me, the thing that Georgia has to continue to show Bigsby is that it's consistent love. It's not we want Evans, but we'll take you.
Exactly.
And because that's been kind of the back and forth through all of this is Georgia was hot and cold with Tank, and so that allowed South Carolina to get into this. That allowed Auburn to get into this, and those are very major players for his recruitment. But I think that did he want to be a Bulldog? Yeah, I think he did coming out of the gate, and I think that he probably still does to some degree, but it's about making him feel wanted, I think, at this
because other schools are making him feel wanted. They're like, you are our number 1 priority. You are our lead guy in this class, not even at your position. You are the bell cow that we want to bring in the rest of it. And when you have somebody else who basically acts like they want you more than someone else, it's like, wow, well, so it has that. And again, we've seen some major predictions for Tank Bigsby to Georgia by some of our top analysts. So I could definitely see it happening. But I think you're right. You need to show them, it's like, hey, you still matter to us, but Kirby is not going to
kiss
anybody's butt.
Well, and he's also not going to scare off these other guys who are still sniffing around. You got South Carolina commit Marshawn Lloyd. He's admitted that he's still pretty interested in Georgia. He told us at the opening he thought he would take an official visit. He seems like maybe he's changed that plan up a little bit since then, but we'll see. It would not surprise me at all. You've got a guy like Don Chaney, who's a Miami commit. Well, he had Georgia finishing second. Now he's out of the Miami area. He'll be a hard pull. Won't surprise me to see him show up, though.
Georgia pulled some Miami kids.
Yeah, Jason McClellan, another guy, Oklahoma commit. Right. You know, he's been kind of in the mix throughout all this. Is he interested in Georgia enough to take a visit? He was supposed to be here this past weekend, ended up canceling that visit. Will he take another one? Considering also that Oklahoma has Seth McGowan, who was also interested in Georgia. Yeah. I mean, they're not going to – I don't think they're going to close the door on any of these guys. I think it has to be a first-come, first-served basis for the running back position. You know, if you want in, get in. But I think that your best chance right now sure is tank.
And that's why we go back to, losing out on Trey Sanders. A lot of Georgia fans ready to cut their wrists on signing day. It's like, look, it's okay. They have other guys coming in, and you don't sweat it. Speaking of other options, when you get a chance, I want you to swing out by Athens Ford here on Atlanta Highway in Athens. A fantastic place. They have 1,026 vehicles available. The state's #1 dealer of certified pre-owned vehicles. When they get those Fords back and they go through them with a fine-tooth comb, it's nothing like getting one of those. It is like buying a brand-new car, except you don't have all that $10,000 extra dollars in it.
Well, you should know.
I absolutely do know. And I took it to the car wash the other day, had them vacuum it out. A year later, the thing still looks brand new. So my son got in the car. He's like, wow. Yeah, because, all my fast food wrappers are out of the floorboard.
Oh, sure.
All of a sudden it looked brand new. The other day, I'm at a four-way stop, and there was a red F-150 Raptor. Red light or four-way stop. Anyway, it was a situation where either one of us could go. And I'm like, no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
You waved him through.
I waved him through because I just wanted to see that Raptor go by. And there was a blonde woman in it, maybe 55 or so. And I'm like, I married wrong.
What's the old saying? Hate to watch her go, hate to see her go, love to watch her leave. Yeah, absolutely.
It was almost the exact same one we have here on the table. That Ford F-150 Raptor. If you want a beautiful truck, go get one of those Raptors. I mean, just the lines on it. I mean, yes, that Ford has the Mustangs and some killer cars, but if anybody can make a truck look sexy and beautiful, that Raptor does. So you get a chance, swing out there. But if you need a pre-owned vehicle, but you want one that's like new without spending the cost of a new one, go out and get one of their certified pre-owned vehicles. And heck, if you just go to their website, they'll give you $500 off a vehicle. They'll even buy your vehicle if you don't buy one from them. So they have a system set up now where you can buy a car in under 90 minutes. Just do me a favor, go to athensford.com. If you like watching the podcast, just go check them out and see what you think. If you need a new or pre-owned vehicle, that's the place. Again, the only place that you can get one with a lifetime powertrain warranty on any new vehicle or any pre-owned vehicle under 80,000 miles.
All right, the people are hungry today. I'm telling you, this getting close to camp has got people fired up, and I understand.
Let's go fast.
All right,
so
we got a couple here from the board. It's this one from our guy Wolf over at the board. Been on the board since 2016. Shout out Wolf. He says, this came up in a thread yesterday, and I don't believe I've heard you guys talk about it. How's Kenny McIntosh looking? Do you think he'll play this year? Maybe a red shirt, wait for Brian and maybe Swift to clear a little room if and when they depart for the NFL. With the way we're recruiting, it's not like the room will get any thinner. Different faces, but same talent and depth.
You play him.
I think so, too.
You play him. You take DeAndre Swift, Murray State, who are those? There's a couple other teams that Georgia should not be much competition for. You play him the first 4 or 5 series. You yank him, which, a lot of those guys don't want to do that because they're like, why are you lathering me up only in the big games? Let me get my 150 yards against some of these easier teams.
Well, you've got at least 4 to play him.
Yeah.
So you're going to do that.
But he can still redshirt. So to his point,
he
plays, but do you play him more than those 4 games? And my thought is you have 4 or 5 games that should just be absolute blowouts. So in that 5th or 6th game, are you going to run him or James Cook or Zamir White? You take DeAndre Swift off the board because you don't need a chance to getting him hurt. James Cook is going to play a lot regardless because you can use him in the slot. Zamir White, maybe you get him 17 carries in a game. but there's still more carries to get, and I think that's where your Kenny McIntosh and Brian Herrien come in.
And I think McIntosh, if you're looking to replace the battering ram that you had in Elijah Holyfield, he's that guy.
That's a good point,
I think
too,
that you use him in a lot of those same situations, which leads us to this interesting question from our guy Reiser, also on the board since 2016. He says, how does Georgia break down carries in the backfield this year? There's a lot of mouths to feed back there. I think that's very true. Somebody asked me this the other day. Do you think Georgia gets 2,000-yard backs? I don't this year. I think that you get one. I think that Swift gets his. But I think
like
the rest
1,200, and then you have a 700 guy, 805 guy, a 600 guy, and a 300 guy.
Sure. Yeah, I think that you've got to structure it like that. I think Swift is your lead back, certainly. Behind him, who do you think's getting second most on the team?
That was when I did my 3-2-1. That was one of my. I put in two questions. That was, who is that second guy? Brian Herrien has been here. He knows it. He's got the offense down. He is a productive back. James Cook, a 5-star running back, no one ever talks about. Guy who's put on some bulk, And
I tell people that. Watch out for James Cook this year because people say, oh, he was slight last year. And I had that same concern coming into camp. When I saw him, I said, this kid's light, man. They got to feed him. But he looks great. The pictures we've seen of him, no
then
doubt.
you got Zamir. Zamir's coming back, like I said, Kenny McIntosh. I don't know who that number 2 guy is. That's my number. I should say it's my number 1 question. But when I hadn't written a 3-2-1 column in many months, and one of the first 2 questions I had was, who gets it after Swift?
I think personally I lean toward Herrien. I think that the experience factor puts him in in a good situation.
He's bulked up.
And he's a good pass catcher out of the backfield, so that works in his favor as well. I just
think whoever is your number 2 guy at the beginning of the season may not be the number 2 guy in the middle of the season nor at the end. I think that could switch around a lot.
All right. This one's a real early
question. Thanks, Reiser, for the question.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a real early projection here from our guy, FP Dog. He says, which game do y'all view as the toughest for the Dogs this year? Which one do you got circled on your list, Roddy?
Auburn.
Just because it's Auburn?
At Auburn. Yeah. I remember what happened last time Georgia went to Auburn.
Sure.
That was a butt kicking. So, also, the love lost there, the anger, the Derek Brown being manhandled by Georgia's offensive line a couple times. He's not going to let that happen again, although Cade Mays is going to try it. So I just think and it also sits on a part of their schedule where they'll need a big win. Georgia will have probably won the East by then, so you get a little bit of, halo.
Soul Food Day, baby.
Soul Food Wednesday.
Absolutely.
So for those of you who are listening to the podcast while you're working out or on the car, we were just handed the soul food platter here because, like I said, we're doing the show on Wednesday. If you come to Champy's on Wednesday, they have their soul food platter. Fried okra, chicken.
Mac and cheese, baby, and that jalapeno cornbread,
Oh, well, that needs to go home with me. And we got some greens over there, too.
Absolutely. So. No, I think that I understand Auburn. I'm really interested to see how much better Texas A&M is going to be this year. Yep. I think that they're going to be very formidable. And then the atmosphere.
That's a home game.
I know. And the atmosphere surrounding Notre Dame is obviously going to put a lot of.
I don't think the Notre Dame game is going to be tough. I know, and people are like, well, Notre Dame is going to be a huge game. I just think that when I'm looking at the talent levels there, I think that the last time Georgia played Notre Dame, they got out of there barely with a win. But you got to remember that was Fromm's first game, and you had a touchdown called back from Elijah Holyfield. That game could have been bigger. Georgia was struggling. I think the talent level they're at now, by the time Notre Dame gets here, I just don't think that is as tough a game as Auburn.
All right. Now, this is a very, very interesting question along those same lines from our guy, C. Gant 1123 over on the board. Connor, I believe is who that is, a good friend of mine. He says, do you think Georgia avoids a letdown game this year like Auburn and LSU in the years past? Just wondering if Kirby's third year they can get past that. Not talking so much about who you think you might lose a game to, but a game where they get ran off the field like those two. You better hope it's this year.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's happened a couple times where nothing can go right. And you can't point to – well, the offense let us down or the defense let us down, when as a coach or a player, you can't say you've had a couple games where both sides, hell, even the kicking team and special teams fell apart. You've had meltdowns. Call them what they are. Will they avoid one this year? God knows. Here's the thing. People don't understand when, as a fan, you know Saturday's coming. You're thrilled. You know, you can't pay attention to work starting on Wednesday. You know, Friday you're pretty much useless. The boss is telling you get out of here. You know, you're not getting anything done, and you're just bouncing off the walls. The players aren't like that. You assume the players are 10 times as excited as you are. The players, it is their –
for them, it's the performance. I'm a theater guy, so I mean, they've just been dress rehearsing for it. It's not like it's all these nerves of like what's going to happen. Yeah. It's, look, we come out here and we execute and we do what we were taught to do, and that's
and, you know, so you're like, I can't wait to go to Florida and, you know, kill these guys and make fun of all the Florida fans. Yeah. They want to win. You know, there's maybe some animosity there, but they don't get as up for every game as fans do.
You can't.
Yes.
You can't get out there and perform at that level.
Right. They're not going to be, you know, hair on fire against Murray State like they would against Florida or Auburn, you know. And sometimes you just get caught when, I don't say low energy, but the other team comes out and they want it more than you do, you know. And you're like, okay, and then by the time you realize you're in a dogfight, you could be down 17 points.
Well, and it goes into that old, you know, adage. I know everybody thinks of it as coach speak, but it's the next game is the most important.
Yeah.
It's not like Georgia's coming out of the gate this year saying, man, I hope we don't have that letdown against Auburn again. Oh, my God. They're thinking about Vanderbilt. I mean, I know people don't want to hear that or believe that. They think, oh, they'll just walk over them. But I really believe that's the mentality that this coaching staff has really imparted upon this team.
One of the things that Kirby Smart does in his planning for the season is to bring together a list of pregame speakers, midweek speakers, people to address these guys. You know, there's a reason Jim Dunn comes out with a steamroller, you know, and Coach Donoff is here. He could tell you one of the hardest things is not always putting in a new game plan or perfecting a game plan. It's getting your guys up and ready to go so that when they come out of the tunnel, they could sustain that energy level for 60 minutes. Sometimes you see a team, and we've seen Georgia do this. They come out, they're excited, they run down the field, they score on their first possession, they get a 3-and-out on their first possession, and then all of a sudden, you know, by the middle of the second quarter, the other team's scoring at will, and you're like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
You started out so well. Well, they come out, and they have the energy, and okay, we got this. You know, I've seen a couple losses to Georgia Tech that way where you just get overconfident because, hey, you've done all those dress rehearsals. The first half performance was great. Second half, you just kind of went on cruise control.
Sure.
So they do happen, but keeping that mentality up is tough, whereas a fan who's got just their entire identity wrapped up in Georgia football, they can stay that intense throughout the game, throughout the year. Sometimes the players don't.
I agree. I agree. Speaking of intense.
You want to intense, yeah. If you're – a fan of the show, you know we talk about Aaron Overhead Doors a lot. There may not be a more intense Georgia fan out there than Ryan Lucie and the folks at Aaron Overhead Doors. Part of it is just they love Georgia football, but, man, this guy loves customer service. He is almost psychotic about it. It's just great. He's like, I see him on Facebook too, and he's just talking about customer service. Like I go on Facebook sometimes and I argue politics or religion or football or whatever. This guy's not arguing, but just talking about customer service and what's next in the Aaron Overhead Doors family. Anything they can do to polish their performance, anything they can do to make it better. Aaron Overhead Doors is doing it. When you get a chance, go to their website. From there, you can look at their financing. You can book online. You can have them come out to your house for free. You know, they don't charge you to come out. We had a plumber come out the other day to fix something. You know, it's like, it's $75 just to call them.
Oh,
you know,
sure.
It's like, geez. Aaron Overhead Doors are going to come out for free. They're going to work with you. And here's the crazy thing. Like I said, maybe there's not a bigger Georgia fan out there. This guy is going to give you 10% off of your work order.
I think that may be
just for being a Georgia fan. Who does that?
I think that may be the greatest mark of being an obsessive Georgia fan.
It's like, if you give me your business, fine. But if you're a Georgia fan, I'm going to give you 10% off. They're ridiculous service.
678-960-3360. Also, how you can get them.
Yeah, when I go to Home Depot, I don't get to say, "Hey, Arthur Blank, I'm a Falcons fan. Do I get 10% off?" It just doesn't work, you know. But it should, you know. It'd be like
I agree.
It'd be that same system.
I agree.
Well, here's our set prices. But by the way, just because you're a fan of the team that I like, I'm gonna give you 10% off.
Sure.
You know, that could be $300. So if you get a chance, swing out and talk to those guys.
Absolutely. Nate Doggy Dog over on the board. Since 401, that's his, and located in Athens. Nate, thanks for being a subscriber. He says, what kind of impact can Kendall Milton have as a recruiter for UGA? I really like that question because I think it can be a big one. Right now, California.
Quiet, though.
California is fertile ground, though.
That's a good point.
And that's the big thing. USC is down. UCLA is down. They're getting picked off by Arizona's and Nevada's, and Oregon is owning the state right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody's getting in there and getting a share of this, and it's sort of like when Florida was down a couple years back. This is a chance for Georgia, I think, to get a guy out of there, a guy who is familiar all over that circuit out there, big time, obviously, recruit, but a guy who can come back to that community and say, hey, here's what it's like. Here's, this is the experience. This is why I enjoyed getting away from home. Yes, it was far away, but here's what I took from it. He's going to be able to take that message and spread it back. He's like a preacher, I think.
You get that little toehold. We saw what happened when you got, say, like a Sony Michel out of Miami.
Yeah. Right.
They brought players up, hey, hang out with a guy from your neck of the woods.
And suddenly, look at your roster.
Yeah.
How many guys are out of Miami now? You got quite a few. You got Tyson Campbell from his school.
Stevenson?
Yeah. You got Stevenson from Miami. Yeah. You got Devod Wilson from Miami Northwestern. Yeah. These things, it's a dividends thing. It pays off over time.
You pull a kid out of Louisiana.
Right.
All of a sudden, now you got a couple.
Yeah.
Maybe a third. You pull one out of Texas. All of a sudden, you get two. Now you're at three. And here's the thing. I had a young lady who's done some work with us in the past. She reached out to us and said, hey, if you need some help this summer, let me know. And we really didn't do a whole lot in the state this summer, covering recruiting camps.
The least since I started.
I mean, going to Corky Kell, there's like two kids to talk to. We had, of course, we had the Giant Rivals camp, and just days and days of coverage there. But right now, it's like if you want to start spending time with a lot of Georgia leans, Georgia targets, you better be have a Delta Sky Miles card because you're going to be in Texas, you're going to be in South Florida, you're going to be in California, you're going to be in Rhode Island, you're going to be Maryland, D.C., middle of the country. The point being, to answer the question, when you have one guy from the state, you can at least point to him. But when you say we haven't had a kid come to California since 2006, it's a lot easier to say, hey, we got a 5-star. If it's good enough for Kendall Milton,
yeah,
it's good enough for you.
Well, and like you said, there's this idea.
Ringo.
Right. Well, there's this idea, too, of, you get a guy like Sonny Michel and look at the dividends that's paid for you later. These guys who play in these leagues, the elite players like this, they come up knowing each other. They come up watching these older guys, and they, there's a degree of, hey, I want to follow in the footsteps of Sonny Michel. Man, Sonny Michel, he put us on the map. He was a guy who really helped set things off for us. I mean,
and when he calls you and says, hey, I had a good time there,
When you got, and all of a sudden.
Here's my Super Bowl ring.
All of a sudden you got Kendall Milton sitting down with Todd Gurley in his commitment video. You know what I'm saying? I mean.
And if you're a North Carolina running back or North Carolina player and you're looking at all the North Carolina kids that have come to Georgia and balled out, you're like, hey. Yeah, I could do that.
All right, another good one here. We've talked a lot of offense, so Chrome Dog here wants to know. He says, who's your guest for the biggest contributor out of Tymon Mitchell, Zion Logue, Tramel Walthour, and Bill Norton? He said, I didn't include Trayvon Walker because I think there's some optimism around him already.
Give me the easy one.
Yeah, right.
He took away the easy answer. Oh, that's tough. I'm going to go with Tramel Walthour. Although I still think he's way undersized.
I could see that, and I started to go that direction just because he's the older guy. I mean, he's got the JUCO experience. I think, and I don't know why I feel this way, but Logue to me has the most Jordan Davis potential coming into this class. He's the guy that we're not really expecting a lot of, but he's got an incredible frame. He's got a chance to get in there, and I think he's got a chance to be a really good football player down the line. He's got imposing size, and talk about your guy Tramel being undersized, not a problem for Logue. I think that size gives him a chance to find his way onto the field.
But to my point, if you're going to set Tramel, maybe that 2-eye technique. Maybe he's a little undersized there, but you move him out to the edge a little bit. I think that the guy obviously can play.
Sure.
So it depends on where you're going to put these guys. Will have a lot to do with that. And I'm not trying to get into the old coach speak answer. Oh well, it's contingent upon X. I just think it's a situation where, when are they coming in? Who are they replacing? What techniques are they? What's the personnel grouping? What are they being asked to do? Sometimes it's just, hey, just man that gap. We don't need you to do anything but that.
Yeah.
Hey, keep our linebackers free. So if that's again, it doesn't look great on the stat sheet, but if they go in and do their job, then maybe that guy has a huge impact. I always go back to David Pollock's first year. Everybody was looking at the other side of the ball because you had a fantastic defensive tackle on that side, and they were triple teaming him, and then allowed David to get free. David became great, and then next year everyone's worried about David Pollock. So as a young player, he had such a huge impact because, they're like, oh, well, we can go one-on-one on him. You learned the hard way you couldn't, but he had a huge impact that first year simply because everyone was looking elsewhere.
Chrome Dog also asked, this is off topic and just for me, he said, how you liking that new Traeger grill? I'm loving it. And I've been sending.
He doesn't talk about anything else.
I've been sending the pictures to the group me. Made some killer ribs the other night.
I don't know if it's legal in the state of Georgia to marry a grill, but if it is, send where are you guys registered?
Yeah.
Traeger.com?
I think we've purchased everything that Home Depot has to offer as far as grill accessories go so far. Sunshine Dog here with a good question and a new member. So shout out to Sunshine Dog.
Thank you,
July
Sunshine Dog.
23rd, he joined just this year. This is his first message on the board. So shout out, Sunshine. He says,
way to bring.
What is there, if anything, to be learned from how LSU and Texas played Georgia's offensive line? Is there anything specific that other teams will hone in on or try to replicate?
If I go back, and again, I'm trying to remember these off my top. I mean, they did get through there. Some of the twists they ran, some of the stunts they ran were legit.
Sure.
They got back there.
And the thing, while you're thinking on that, my thing is there aren't maybe necessarily some things that you're going to be able to key in on because this is an experienced group. These are guys who aren't going to make a ton of mistakes. But when you're going against pass rushers of that caliber, they're going to get theirs at some point. I mean, that's just an inevitability. LSU has some of the best pass rushers in the nation. Texas A&M has some guys who can really get after the quarterback. Now, I'm not saying Georgia doesn't, but I'm not sure. I will say I don't think that their pass rushers right now are on the same level as LSU's guys. I think that they've been building that for a long time.
But to me, was LSU more of the offensive line not getting it done, or was the fact that the LSU's linebackers were killing it?
Yeah.
Those, White was everywhere.
Sure.
So I don't know that it was, Cade Mays or, Andrew Thomas getting beat a lot, on the line. Again, we saw a few twists and stunts get through, but those are going to happen. But I don't know that it happened more, there than at Alabama. They kind of did okay against Alabama's offensive line. I don't know that there's anything you have to fix. It's just, again, do your job, do it well. And, hey, maybe get to that second level, make it a little, climb a little bit and get to those linebackers and take them out of the contention.
I'm going to take this question just because I love the name. Cooter Emerson out of Thomaston, Georgia. Cooter, thanks for tuning in, buddy.
Good town.
He says, is David Marshall ready? I think David Marshall is ready. I think that, honestly, now my main concern with Marshall is that he has the Liz Frank injury, which is one of those that just perpetually nags guys for years and years to come. What we've heard in that regard has been positive, that Marshall has rehabbed it, that they believe it's over, but that's just one of those injuries that always concerns me because it's one of those that even the slightest tweak, it feels like, can bring something back. I think aside from that, if he's 100% ready to go like we're hearing, I think that he can make a big impact this year. He's a very good pass rusher.
Give you Jordan Davis, Tyler Clark, David Marshall, and maybe Azeez Ojulari, Adam Anderson, Nolan Smith, Jermaine Johnson, Brenton Cox.
Anybody?
And I've heard great things about Malik Herring. So, but give me three kind of hogs right there in the middle. Killing those gaps. You take that center and you push him into the A gap, and you're standing in the other one, and all of a sudden, you just make life a living hell for the quarterback.
Sure.
And Jordan can do that, and then all of a sudden, here comes Tyler Clark playing like he did as his sophomore year. He got through a lot, and David Marshall did as well. I'm not going to say, that he can't, but he that injury it's very annoying.
Yeah.
But we've heard that he's healed. We hear that he's back. We've heard that he's ready to go. So I just did a show with Randy McMichael in Atlanta radio, and there's the first question is always about the wide receivers. And they made a good point. They still got a lot of great talented guys there. They said, what's your second area of concern? I'm like, the defensive line. But again, you've got guys that can play there. You've got depth.
And you've got experience. Now, what it is, though, I think, is you've also had consistent underperforming in a lot of those guys.
You say it that way. I say there's been inconsistency. Okay. You've seen those guys who have – Tyler Clark has been unstoppable at times, as has David Marshall. Jordan Davis was killing it, but then he had the back injury lifting weights. How will he be? So it's
is a senior like Julian Rochester going to get out there and with money on the line for the NFL make his impact felt in this year? I don't know. We'll see. I think that's
so. That was my other question mark. But again, it's just like the wide receivers. There's not a lot of production there, but you have a ton of potential. So if Georgia can, I think Georgia will be fine at the wide receiver spot. I'm more concerned about the defensive line.
I understand that. All right, we got a question here from our guy Mav James up in Spring Hill, Tennessee. He says, "Do you think Georgia is settling at wide receiver with Tyler Simmons, or is he a true SEC starter caliber wide receiver?"
That's a great question, and I want to answer it this way. When he was being recruited, remember he was committed to Alabama. Mm-hmm. Kirby Smart at Alabama wanted him. Again, and I've told the story countless times, he's running the third leg of the 4x100 for his track team over in Jefferson. He goes flying around the corner, and he looks like, now he's not huge. Tyler's not a gigantic man.
About 5'10".
But he had the full beard. Yep. He's hairy. He looks like he's about 26 years old. And Kirby and Mike Bobo are on the infield talking, good friends. And Kirby's like, excuse me. And Kirby, in his, gator shoes, runs flying across the field to kind of be there when Tyler's done, at that final exchange, walking back, and they're not allowed to talk and recruit out there, but he made sure that he saw him. Kirby gets the head job. What do they do on the final day before signing day or before the dead period? He and his Kirby copter, whatever, and the entire staff
go into Tyler's home.
They bring a bulldog, and bring him in there.
Yeah, they track down a bulldog.
They track down a bulldog, bring it there, and they end the night at Tyler's house. Point being, this was a major fight between Alabama and Georgia. Tyler, he has great speed. He's strong. He has good hands. I think if he is a feature – and remember, he's taking on that jet sweep too.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So he is a productive SEC talent. I think he can be the guy. I don't think they're settling. And I'm not trying to blow him up just because I like him, but I think this is a kid who he had a major screw-up one day.
Yeah.
You remember that pass in the end zone that he went the wrong route and he kind of gave up on it. Kirby chewed him up and down. Since then, he has been 10 times as productive after getting his butt chewed. So I think that is a guy who will produce.
And I think that he's a guy, too, who has taken time to become a wide receiver as opposed to just being a very good athlete and a guy who could outrun guys in high school. It's taken him some time to
Can't do that all the time at this level.
Right. Obviously, you saw what he could do on special teams in the SEC championship. It's a situation where it's some of these guys, it just takes some time. And listen, is he SEC caliber? He's got SEC caliber speed, I'll tell you that. You're talking about a guy who runs a legitimate 4.3 on the laser. I don't know what more you can ask.
You'd like to be 4 inches taller,
of course,
and longer arms, but again, for what he has, he is fine. Give it to him. Put Demetrius Robertson out there as well. Give George Pickens, Matt Landers, Trey Blunt. Don't forget Trey.
Yeah.
You got some guys out there. Tommy Bush. See what they can do.
A lot of people here asking to we'll take this one last one here before we hit you. He says a lot of people asking this one, will George Pickens be a starter by midseason?
Yeah.
I think that's very possible.
Again, it's tough to go off mid-season buzz, because you talk to people who are at the Athletic Association who are watching the team-led 7-on-7s, and they're like, yeah, he had a great catch in this thing, over, Eric Stokes. You're like, wow, okay. So that's pretty impressive, Again, it wasn't in pads. did he run the right route for the play that was called, again, by the team? This wasn't, you got to run the right one that Cortez Hankton wants you to run. There's so many variables there, but, Cream rises to the top. He's a 5-star guy. He's it's not one of those, is he a 5-star, is he a 4-star? No, George Pickens is a freak.
And they've been trying to find, I think, a guy with this frame who can do the things that he can do over the course of the last 3 classes with Matt Landers, Tommy Bush, and now him. I'm not saying those guys won't develop into good players. I think that they can be. I think Matt's a very physical wide receiver. I think Tommy's a guy who's going to grow into it as well. When the time comes. I think Pickens is a guy who has that frame and can do it right out of the gate. I think that he can deliver on getting you that big-bodied guy and making a red zone threat. Robert Barnes says, I got a gut feeling D-Rob will show out this year. I think that
I've been predicting that for a year.
I think that you're probably on point there too, Rob.
I'm trying to go back to Jerry Jeudy.
Oh, yeah.
Remember what we were talking about him?
Sure.
He came to Athens, and it was a 7-on-7, but we were like, wow, this guy's lights out. His first year, who's the Clemson wide receiver that killed everybody his freshman year?
Justin Ross.
I'm not saying George Pickens is those guys,
right?
Because those are first round. But that's what we've looked at, and we give him the 5-star rating. We say this is a kid who we expect to go in the first round of the NFL draft. You don't get the 5-star ratings just because you're really, really good. There's a lot of really. I saw somebody complaining that Georgia's got the number 94 player in the country. There's 93 players better than him. Remember, there's 90. This is across all positions.
Right.
You're the top 100 player out of 3 million high school football players. That's pretty bloody good. There's only going to be about 32 5-star guys a year, and that's why we make a big deal out of if you get a guy like Kendall Milton, we expect Kendall Milton to go in the first round when he goes to the NFL draft. So we expect DeAndre Swift to maybe go right where Nick Chubb did. 33rd, 34th, 35th, because he was the first guy who wasn't a 5-star.
I expect him to go in the first round.
Just saying,
and I advocated for that.
You did. But that's what we're saying. So when you look at George Pickens, we're like, here's a guy. How long do you think you can keep a guy like that off the field, especially when you don't have established starters ahead of him?
Yeah.
It's not like you're coming in trying to replace Terry Godwin, who's been there 4 years. You're not coming in to replace Chris Conley. So I just see a situation where by midseason, I can give him that.
All right, Ford Reddy here. Speaking of Pickens, he says, what would you say is the thing that Pickens needs to work on most when it comes to his game? For me,
playbook.
I could see that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. For me, I think it's just putting on the proper weight and making sure that he's right, because he was a very thin kid in high school. He's going to want to bulk up physically, I think, in order to get out here and bang with some of these guys. But once he does that, he's going to be fine. I'm not saying he was like a stick, but he can put on some size to ensure that he can really be taking this punishment on the regular.
And I'm not saying that he doesn't know the playbook. I'm just saying when you have any guy, be it what's the number one issue we see with running backs? Not being able to pick up a blitz. Not protecting the quarterback when they're not getting the ball. Number one issue we see with wide receivers, not being able to block. Not knowing who to block. As Coach Don always says, you got to pick up the most dangerous guy on your side, and all of a sudden maybe it's not the cornerback in front of you, maybe it's the safety coming up, and
Sure.
You got to get over to him. Knowing what the defense is doing, in other words, being involved when the ball is not coming your way. And I think a lot of that is playbook issues. You got to know what the rest of the squad is doing on that call and be there. That's why, hey, is he going to start? I don't know. We'll find out Friday. Let's see what happens Friday. We'll actually see some, hopefully, wide receiver rotation. I doubt he'll be on the first chart there, but at least, maybe by 2 weeks from now, we're going, okay, right now we're seeing Demetrius Robertson, George Pickens, and Tyler Simmons. That's your first 3 out the bat.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell.
Where's Kearis Jackson?
And it's hard to tell out of that stuff for sure.
Something that's easy to tell, when you get a chance, go out to Academia Brewing Company. We got their beer here. Where I'm seeing it more and more restaurants are carrying Academia Brewing Company, which is smart because if you want to sell a lot of beer,
you carry the good stuff.
But yesterday they had a wing eating contest. One guy ate 29 of them.
I think you could have maybe put some.
These aren't little wings. Academia wings are gigantic. So this is not this isn't those little baby
you're
wings.
a big boy.
Yeah, I can't eat 29 wings. God. I get 10 and I'm kicking it. But it just they have a picture up on their Facebook page of their what they call it, the Cerebus.
Yes,
the Cerebus, but it's a tripolata. So they have a Cerebus sandwich which has 3 meats in it, but just get this. They have these fried eggs with an avocado slice on it, pesto spinach flatbread with shrimp and avocado. We talk about their beer a lot, but if you want great food, they have a wonderful chef out there at Academia Brewing Company. Go out there and have a meal. Just go try a meal. Because, some people, they're not into beer.
Sure.
They're wine people. It's fine.
Maybe they're sober.
But you're not an alcoholic, If you get a chance, go out there and just eat lunch, eat dinner. Put them in your rotation as a fantastic restaurant. And then, if you're like, hey, let me try one of your flights of beers, they'll bring you the 4. And it's a neat way they do it because actually, I hate when I go to a place and I order 4 beers and I don't remember what I ordered.
Yeah.
And I've got 4 of them. I don't know which one's which. They have them written down. They have them locked out. And you guys take it with you. So you're like, hey, I like these, beers. Maybe I want to order this one again when I come back. So when you get a chance, go out and have a great meal at Academia Brewing Company. And, of course, choose from the 30 beers they'll have out there. It's not a better place to go and have a nice meal.
And a great place to take a big party, too. Yeah. Tons of room to spread out, tons of tables. So if you got a big event, check them out. It's
a situation where it's like, well, what are we going to – are we going to go eat Italian? Are we going to go eat, American? Are we going to go eat Chinese? If you have a widely varied group, there's something for everybody out there. And it's tough when you're taking, 7 people. Somebody's going to be, oh, well, I had that yesterday. Well, you're not going to have that situation when you go out to Academia Brewing Company.
All right, I love this question, so I want to hit it for sure. Ford Reddy says, who is the dark horse for second in the East this year?
Dark horse?
Yeah.
Oof. The East is higgly-piggly. I mean, Missouri lost a lot.
I agree.
South Carolina?
I think with the addition of Tavian Feaster, that puts them very heavily into the conversation.
I mean, everyone thinks it's Florida.
You got an experienced quarterback with Jake Bentley. You add a guy who's played in that Clemson offense, knows what it takes to win. Tavian Feaster, also a major track star when he was coming out of high school. Guy super blazing fast. I think that really ups their chances. And I will say, I think that they've continued to add some really good players over the course of the years. You bring in a guy like Zach Pickens.
Yeah.
You got a guy now. Who's the other? Rick Sandage. He's ready to take a step forward this year. J.C. Horn at the cornerback position.
Yeah, I miss interviewing Rick Sandage's mom.
Yeah,
it's the best. But yeah, I think that that's probably dark. I know a lot of people think Florida's number 2 right there, but don't sleep on Will Muschamp. We know he's a great recruiter. And here's the thing, folks. If you recruit great players, you win more games. I don't care how bad a coach you are, but it's tough to lose with bad players. It's easy to lose with bad players, and it's sometimes hard to win at a high level with good players. But if you've got better players than the other guy, you got a 60-40% chance of winning. You got a coach who won't lose you the game. Yeah, give it South Carolina.
And that dark horse. I'll tell you a dark horse guy to watch, Alston Orji at Vanderbilt. The highest rated recruit that Vanderbilt has ever gotten. 4-star consensus across the board. A guy who I think can make a lot of impact for the Commodores. So watch out for Alston over the course of the next couple of seasons for sure. Missouri versus Florida will determine second, says Lloyd Dixon. Very possible, I think.
But my thing with Missouri, a lot of talent there, tough schedule. South Carolina, of course, has a pretty nasty schedule. But again, I'm not really worried about who's Georgia's 12-0, 14-0 against the East last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like honestly, I'm not paying attention to the East like I used to. Now I keep looking at teams in the West. I'm like, how's Texas A&M going to be? Is Georgia going to face LSU again?
And
how's that Auburn game coming?
I think a lot of people
you've upped your game.
A lot of people. I'll say this for myself. You can agree or disagree if you want.
I disagree.
I figured you would. I don't watch a lot of other teams. I just don't have time, to be honest with you. We're so involved with Georgia that I don't get to watch the full Missouri season. I don't get to see how
that is actually
Florida finished
the
last year.
The best thing that happens for us, and again, this is kind of inside baseball, is this when Georgia has like a noon game, you're like, I'm actually going to be able to watch the 8:30 game, not the 3:30 game. We're still working.
Yeah, right.
And we'll work up until but around 8 o'clock, it's like, hey.
I'm not having to settle for Pac-12 after dark, man.
Exactly. And, again, it's not.
I became a big Washington State fan.
And it's not again, we're not complaining. We have the greatest jobs in the world. It's just we don't get to watch a lot of other teams in action at the time it goes on. Lots of times if I'm going to catch something, I'm catching the highlights just like an AP voter.
Yep.
Just like a coaches poll voter. Those coaches poll, AP polls, dumbest things in the world because you have people who are not watching the entire game. They're watching. In other words, if you're going to be an AP voter, you should not be covering a team. You should not be a beat writer because you spend 8 to 12 hours that Saturday covering the team that you had.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, well, how does Texas A&M look? No idea. What about Wisconsin? Did they play today? You didn't watch that game. You watched the 30-second ESPN package and you voted based on everybody else.
I try to tell people that. I think that people assume, oh man, you must know everything about college football. No, I know a lot about Georgia.
I can't even tell you who the starting O-line is for the Falcons right now. We're focused in on Georgia football.
I could get close.
Speaking of people that they're focused on only one thing, I'm going to give a big shout out to our friends at Your Pie. We did a lot of traveling this summer. When we got back, there's nothing better than coming back to a fantastic Your Pie pizza. Nobody else does it like that. Been around the world, had crappy pizza, but there's nothing like coming back to Your Pie. 60-plus locations, opening more and more all the time. When you get a chance and you want to watch that Pac-12 after dark, or Georgia's got that noon game after it's over, go out and have a couple of Your Pies with your friends, have some beers, Academia beer. Nothing like it. If you get a chance, it's going to take 4 minutes to cook you a pizza. It's going to be made exactly the way you want it. And if you want it piled a mile high with toppings, fine. If you want it with just the simplest bare bones, mozzarella and the tomatoes, that ishka or the natural, go ahead and try Your Pie. You're going to thank me for it. It's going to be in your rotation. Be like, I got to go there at least once a week. I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
And if you want to make $1 jillion, open up a couple of them. So, what else we got?
All right.
We're running out of time. So
we just got a couple want to fit in here real quick. Fred G. Sanford. I'm not sure that's your real name, but I'll go with it. He says, any news on Ryan Davis? I am hearing very, very good things on Ryan Davis, especially in regards to how fast he is and how big he is. Sounds like he is putting up some impressive numbers.
Yeah, we're gonna do some digging, but we heard that he rocked out on that. They wear the look like sports bras, but they wear these little things that have a little GPS tracker in the back in the summer, and they track how far these guys are running and how fast they're running. And we've seen, Eric Stokes hit like 23 miles an hour on the field, when you see that so-and-so's ran, 7,000 steps in a practice and stuff like that. This guy ran 2 miles in practice. What we heard, and again, we don't have the exact number, but we're hearing that Ryan Trouble Davis was way up there for a linebacker.
Especially a guy of his size. I mean, you're talking about 6'3", 240-ish on that guy. Just blew out an ACL last season.
Yeah, when you're running 20-plus miles an hour, when you're in that range as a linebacker at that size and speed.
You're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah,
you're going to hurt them.
Well, hey, they call him trouble. So, and again, I'm also, I mentioned this, one of Georgia's linebackers said that he had not played with didn't think he would play with another linebacker the caliber of Roquan Smith. And now he's saying that he is playing with another player the caliber of Roquan Smith in Nakobe Dean.
That's high praise, man.
I'm just saying.
That's high praise.
This defense, Jim Donnan, and again, shout out to Jim Donnan. We know he couldn't be here today. He's taking care of his wife down at Emory.
A couple people have been asking, by the way. Yeah, Coach Donnan not here today. We were waiting on him. That's why we did it on Wednesday this week. We are not changing the date. Wednesday's not the new day.
It's not Wednesday. We'll keep doing it on Tuesdays. Coach Donnan has been bullish on this defense, and when you start hearing these little tidbits like that about how fast Davis is, how good Logue has looked, David Marshall being healthy, you think year 2 for Eric Stokes, and Tyson Campbell, got a guy like Tariq who's, just here. All their secondary guys have been here the entire time. DJ Daniel, a JUCO prospect. That defense is looking pretty stout to go with a very strong offense. So this Friday, we will see them, and we will see what they can do. So when you get a chance, be sure to go to UGAsports.com. Remember, it's 50% off right now. 50UGA is a promo code. We will have more fall camp practice coverage than anybody else. You can get it for half off. So go ahead and jump on that. And then be sure to tune in next Tuesday on 365 Game Day, where you get all your gear. And we will have Jim Donnan back, God willing, and everything will be back to normal. And we will talk Georgia football then. Take care.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.